keeps unfolding. I mean, I recently learned just 2 weeks ago that the latest camera, if you have the money, is 1,000 times more sensitive than our camera. One could even do this in real time. And so we can look forward to new discoveries as the technology unfolds. Thank you.
So there's time for some questions, and there are a lot of them. I'd like to start off with one question, and that is a few years ago at the SSE, I reported an experiment in which, using intention, one changed the reflectivity off a piece of glass, and you could measure the effects of that.
Fantastic. We'll have to talk about that.
So the question that I ask myself, and I'm also going to ask you, is how much, or do we know that we are measuring what we think we're measuring? In your case, are you measuring actual changes in the cosmic rays, or are you measuring noise in the camera?
Yes, or decreased noise in the camera, because we're dealing with actual, or some sort of structure. The answer, of course, is we don't know. All we know is we're getting what we get.
Yes.
And until we can ultimately actually measure the nature of the camera process separate from the cosmic rays, or do shielding, or do these other kind of experiments, it's an unknown question.
So you don't know whether it's out there or in there?
We don't know. We infer, based on a lot of research, that what's being picked up is out there, but whether the transformation is occurring to the electronics of the camera or actually affecting the structure of the cosmic rays, of course we don't know.
Yes.
A few years ago at the Consciousness Conference out in Tucson, someone had used the camera simulators to show biophotons being emitted from dead vegetables.
For what?
From dead vegetables. They have dead vegetables thrown in there, the live vegetables, dead vegetables. The dead vegetables were still emitting biophotons.
Absolutely.
They're chemically dead. Could you possibly combine your experiment with that one to see if you could have intent on the biophotons emitted by dead plants?
It's a wonderful, by the way, we've done a number of experiments, not to be reported here, on the effects of human intention on biophoton emission of plants.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you define a quote dead plants. These plants were at least cut.
There's a time release thing. They have after 1 day, after 2 days, after 3 days, and 3 days after the plants have died, they're still emitting biophotons.
Absolutely. In fact, what's really interesting is that certain atoms and molecules also emit, quote, biophotons, i.e. they emit photons. And to my knowledge, no one has ever taken a plant and just had it, and then you've got all the bacteria growing. I mean, there's a lot of things that are going to be evoking light, okay? But what is important is that we've done research indicating that healers, with their intention, can either increase or decrease the amount of biophoton emission of plants with their intention. So this is a bidirectional effect. And I don't know about the question of if it's, quote, living or dead from the plant point of view.
Very wonderful results here. I question the use of the Fourier product. Fourier has the assumption of stability, and you're dealing with an episodic occurrence. Why did you choose Fourier instead of wavelengths?
There were two reasons. Number one, we were looking for anything that could pick up structure. And as you know, although there are assumptions that we make with Fourier analysis, empirically you can still apply it. And secondly, it was mostly convenience. There was a very simple way for us to do something that could give us ultimately something that was measurable. So I would say, honestly, it was mostly practical at this point. And what's interesting, because we've now done 3 experiments, I'm just reporting one, is it, quote, works. So it becomes a tool with the qualification of not really knowing what it's telling us.
I think the use of the wavelet would have been superior because the Fourier loses time domain.
That's correct.
The wavelet can maintain that. You can see the time dynamics of the effect, assuming you see the effect.
We'll now start searching for wavelet analysis too. Thanks. That's a good suggestion.
Gary, did you look at other kinds of healers other than Joe Ray healers, because the data that I got with the DNA showed opposite kinds of results with different healers?
The answer is not yet. But what we have done is we've explored other intention conditions and found that intention conditions matter. So I would not be surprised if other healers might have different effects. But my working hypothesis is that those healers who work with the notion of a universal energy, working with the notion of a higher energy, that we're going to see some universality of the patterns that we see. That's the working hypothesis.
I'm sorry, there isn't time.